The scent of damp earth and pine needles usually settled my mind. It was the smell of my trade, of growth and order imposed on wildness. But lately it just felt like another layer of mud I couldn't wash off. 8 years of marriage, a decade together, and it had all turned to compost overnight. Now I was just picking at the pieces, trying to figure out which ones could still grow, and trying desperately to be the father Leo deserved. He wasn't biologically mine. Didn't matter. Not one damn bit. Not to me. He was 4 when I came into his life, a bright-eyed, curious kid who just needed someone to throw a ball with and teach him how to tie his shoes. I did that. I was there. Every scraped knee, every school play, every late-night talk about video games. He was my son. Clara knew that. She saw it. We built a life here in Boulder, nestled against the Flatirons, a life that felt as solid as the rock itself, until it didn't. The final divorce decree sat heavy in my hands, the ink barely dry. I was parked outside the courthouse, the Colorado sun too bright, too cheerful for how I felt. Empty. Hollowed out. It had been finalized over Zoom yesterday, impersonal, sterile, fitting for an ending that felt so unreal. 1 minute you're a husband, a family man with a future stretching out. The next you're this. A man alone in a car, clutching a piece of paper that confirmed the demolition. Last Wednesday, she'd shown up at the business office, our landscaping business, the one Marcus and I built from the ground up. We were swamped, late summer rush, but I told her to come to the back. The final papers she needed to sign. I was sorting invoices, the smell of fertilizer thick in the air, while she sat across the desk, reading. She was at the last page, staring at it, then at me. It wasn't just staring, it was that look, begging maybe. Tears welling, shimmering in her eyes. It was infuriating. "Just sign it, Clara," I said, my voice flat. "Don't do this. Don't make a show." Her lips parted, then closed. She looked away, back at the paper. "Speak what you have to say," I pushed, anger bubbling. "Don't pull this bullshit now. Not after everything. Not when you're off with other people." She hadn't once expressed a desire to fix things. Not really. Not in any way that mattered. She signed the forms then, head down, like a child caught doing something wrong. She didn't look at me again. I had to go find her in a car a few minutes later. Something about the stimulus money, some practical detail I needed sorted. She was sitting there, staring straight ahead. "How's Leo?" she asked, her voice quiet. Leo. My boy. He wasn't biologically mine, but I'd been there since he was 4. I tried to connect, every morning text, every check-in. But he was 14 now, on the cusp of high school, navigating his own world. And the divorce. It had put a distance between us. He didn't talk to me like he used to. "He doesn't really talk to me anymore," I told her, the words tasting like ash. She just nodded, looking dejected. Was it real, or just another performance? "Clara," I said softly, giving her one last impossible chance. "Tell me, the truth. Why?" She just stared at me. Empty eyes, or maybe just tired. I couldn't tell anymore. Furious, the words spilled out before I could stop them. "You never loved me. First of all, that's not true." Tears finally spilled down her face. I wouldn't have considered cheating if I didn't love you. It made no sense. It was a twisted, broken logic that only she could hold on to. "If you loved me," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "If you really loved me, I was loyal. Always. Other women, they approached me. In this business, it happens. I always turned away, because I knew you wouldn't like it. Because I loved you." She had no answer. Just the tears. "Get in touch when you have that money," I said, the final thread snapping. I got out of the car. I wish I had known. From the beginning. That she didn't love me. Not in the way I loved her. It would have saved years of effort, of building, of believing, years of suffering. It was killing me. This knowledge. This ache in my chest. The hearing was yesterday. Today I was single. In shock. This massive pit in my gut. How was I supposed to feel? Free? Devastated? Both? My friends, bless them, wanted to celebrate. "You're free, man," they said. They weren't being nasty about her, just supportive of me. It felt good, that loyalty. But I didn't know how to approach it. Celebrate? Or just curl up and cry again? Oddly, all I wanted was to hear her voice. Not the voice of the stranger who wore her face now, but the voice of the woman I married. The one who laughed a certain way, the one who knew my coffee order, the one whose warmth I missed in the empty bed. But she was gone. Here I was, just me, and Jack, my corgi, snoring softly on the passenger seat. I didn't have many friends, but the ones I had were the best. My family, Marcus and Robert, were incredible. Support was there, but I just felt empty, exhausted, drained. What was next? Call Leo? Tell him it was final over the phone? Say screw it and book a flight to Italy? Wander ancient streets until the pain felt small? Go back to Vegas with the guys for a desert recharge trip, mountains and dry air clearing the head? All I truly wanted was to lay here in silence, staring at the ceiling of my apartment, letting the emptiness swallow me whole. But life had to go on. And so, I supposed, did I. The book recommendations my friends sent were waiting for me at the bookstore. Self-help, divorce recovery, mindfulness. I picked them up, eager to start, even if I didn't believe they could fix this. I never imagined myself here. This wasn't the life I planned. Italy felt a million miles away, both geographically and emotionally. The timing was horrible, but the idea of escaping, of putting oceans between me and this wreckage, had a desperate appeal. Vegas felt temporary, a quick fix, a distraction. Marcus suggested a mountain trip instead. Hiking, fresh air, something real. Something that didn't involve flashing lights and fake smiles. The Rockies were right there, a constant, silent presence. Maybe that was it. Another friend going through his own divorce, 22 years of marriage ending, texted me. Same boat, man, he wrote. Signing papers at 3 today, she left 2 years ago. His words echoed mine, hollow, worn out by the struggle. Hang in there, friend, he added. Better things are waiting, one breath, one stride. Be patient, be gentle. We deserve better. Damn, I felt his words, the shared suffering. It had been 3 weeks since the last time I wrote anything down, since that first post-divorce update. 3 weeks, and I was still disoriented, still feeling like my insides were being ripped apart by tiny, frantic metal butterflies. Yesterday morning. Ex-wife, God, it was still crazy to type that, was off to work. I was heading to the business. We stopped at the same junction on Baseline Road. She was turning right to get onto the freeway I had just exited. I was turning left under the overpass, heading towards the yard. Our cars idled side by side. My heart and stomach sprang, the same familiar, exhilarating and lately terrible sensations. Seeing her, the rush of memory, the jolt of pain. We made eye contact across the 2 lanes, just for a second, until the light changed. Then we drove our separate directions, literally and metaphorically. I couldn't think of a more perfect, brutal comparison for the state of things. Still feeling longing, grief, rage, disappointment, nausea, a whole damn rainbow of depression-inducing emotions. Here I was, typing out the pain. I wished for the love of God I could be indifferent, wished I could rip out this deep-seated affection, root and all. F*** her, and her stupidity. It justified nothing. It explained nothing. But I was still in love with her. Her scent, her warmth, the sensation of her hair brushing against my face, mixing with my beard, the feel of her soft skin against my bare chest, the rhythm of her heart against my arms when I held her in the dark. These were the sweetest dreams I had of her. Lately, they'd been most vivid. How could she leave such an effect on me when it was so damn simple for her to demolish everything we had created together? Yes, I understood it was past. Yes, I understood the sensation might never fully go away. Yes, I understood that processing trauma takes time, but I was tired of processing, tired of feeling the hurt, tired of sobbing, tired of reminding myself that it was okay to not be okay. I missed feeling even-keeled. Every day felt like I was standing precariously atop a damned barrel, trying to keep my balance. Some days were good. I got this, I'd think. Balance is possible. I'd been doing it for months now, I should be used to it. Other days, though, like yesterday, like today. The agony of betrayal never let me find even a tiny respite. I'd trip off the platform. Equilibrium was useless. You could tell pretty clearly what kind of day this one was. Usually it got worse before it got better. I hated platitudes. 3 weeks had passed since that last post. I made it to 3 weeks. Yesterday I watched Leo's middle school soccer game. Seeing him out there on the field in his jersey, running, kicking, it made me so damn happy. How much he had changed, how big he was. He was so tall now, his voice was cracking. It was weird not to have seen the day-to-day changes myself. I felt like I was being watched from the bleachers, but I didn't see Clara until almost half an hour in. I turned and our gazes met squarely across the field. Her parents, Arthur and Evelyn, were seated with her. The team lost, sadly, but they played hard. I waited for the squad to pass the bleachers as people filed off. Arthur and Evelyn passed right by me as if I hadn't uttered a word, even though I nodded and used their first names. I just laughed, a short, bitter sound, and let the throng pass. It was great to hug Leo, to chat with him personally, not over the phone or via text. I waited for him at the team exit. The thrill of seeing each other again permeated every moment. He smelled like sweat and grass. Normal. Clara eventually came up to say something loving to Leo. Our chat was clinical. I asked her when the next game was scheduled, since I depended on her for those specifics now. We both knew we weren't decent. We certainly weren't friends. I'd made that plain after the last game, telling her not to sit next to me. "Let's go," she told Leo. He gave me a long hug. "I love you, buddy," I told him. Though difficult, I did let go. I turned and walked in the other direction from my car, not looking at her, not bidding farewell. The one who listened to and loved for almost a decade wanted to run over, grab her, kiss those lips, hug her body in my arms and feel her warmth and heartbeat. The one I felt slightly betrayed by my heart because of. I had to aggressively control it, white-knuckling my composure. Not until I got home, back to my quiet, empty apartment, and sat in silence to reflect on everything, would there be tears. Even then, they were few. I was still figuring out these emotions, still had additional wonderful dreams of her last night. Once more, I felt as if I were fighting my own body and my own thoughts. I was doing everything I could, working out practically every day, eating clean, maybe 1 or 2 cheat meals a week. I had poured myself into the business with Marcus, and it was flourishing. Honestly, we'd never had this many staff members. It was fantastic. We were building things, creating order. I was studying about stocks and investing, reading more, certifying myself for IT jobs in case the landscaping business ever dried up. Building skills, building a new future. Most of all, Jack, my corgi, was my other little kid. Always wanted to play, always happy to see me. Filling the emptiness was odd. It certainly felt like a vast, gaping void inside me. Being a father and a husband was great fun. We'd nearly decided to have another kid back when Hurricane Harvey was approaching Texas. We were safe, dry, not impacted at all here in Colorado, but it was a time of intense closeness, of feeling like we were a unit against anything. Plenty of fun, crazy, and somewhat exotic events happened. By November, we knew she was pregnant. Sure, here it is exactly as you requested. Money, space, our present circumstances. We finally agreed we should stop the pregnancy, not have another kid. I wondered if things would be different, if we would be at this place now, if she would have f***ed another person. This had started me thinking back. Yes, I knew the what-if game was never a nice place to be, never a good thing to linger on. But lately, it had just been emerging more and more in my mind, let alone the dreams, like I had last night, of my beautiful wife, and what could have been, our little girl, or our second little boy. It made me miss Leo even more, and it irritated me that she wouldn't let me adopt him. She said that I could only after all this garbage had transpired, after the divorce. Why? Why hold that over me? I apologized for the protracted post. I just found myself repeating and ranting last night in my head. It hadn't even been a year since she broke off our relationship, since she confessed. I knew it was still early, quite fresh following the divorce. I supposed all I could say was that today I wasn't feeling it. It was almost 10 a.m. I hadn't gotten out of bed, that she still affected me, and how I felt every time I saw her bothered me, deeply. Update 4. Hey everyone, at last I had developed an apathetic attitude, or something close to it. Other than that, I was feeling happier more consistently. I wasn't really sure what to say. Right now, I was working out on a schedule, cooking more, experimenting with new recipes. I had been picking up writing once more, working on a short story, something completely unrelated to any of this mess. Creating something new felt cleansing. To see the Phoenix Suns defeat the Nuggets, I flew to Denver. Just a short drive, but it felt like a trip. Getting out, doing something for me. Next, I was about to head to Oregon to visit a cousin, do some hiking along the coast, try tubing in a new place. Physical activity, new scenery, putting distance between myself and the wreckage. My bond with Leo was different now, though. I got in touch. He seemed really busy. School, friends, soccer, now gaming competitions. Man, this was what it felt like to have a full-on teenage son. I was doing my best to be understanding. Lunch here and there, maybe grabbing a meal. I supposed I would grab what I could get. Simply said, I missed being with him consistently. That constant, easy presence. I was now going on dates with someone. Sophia Rossi. She managed her own companies, was just fantastic. Independent, intelligent, strong, mature. She ran a slow, steady pace in life, seemed grounded. She was aware of my circumstances, the divorce, Leo. Both of us were cautious, not leaping in too quickly. Still, it was amazing. Our interests were somewhat similar. We had easy communication. Our goals seemed rather apparent, building stable, meaningful lives. Even now, when we were simply lounging about, it was just calm, peaceful. A stark contrast to the constant turmoil I'd been living in. I was attempting to keep myself from developing any negative habits or tendencies, not rushing things, not letting the past poison the present. Simply said, it was fantastic to feel good once more, to feel normal, or a new kind of normal. She asked yesterday, what will happen if and when another man gets involved with Leo? Meaning, if Clara started seriously dating someone who became a father figure to him. To be honest, I wasn't sure. If Leo didn't reach out to me as much, if he gravitated towards a new figure, then it was just me having to sit back and hope for the best for him. I would be there for him. That was all I dared think or say. In this, I had no legal clout or rights, no biological tie, just the bond we had built, which felt incredibly strong to me, but which the world and Clara could potentially undermine. Fortunately, I had seen Clara face to face recently, and I truly didn't feel anything for her anymore. The raw longing was gone. The apathy had settled in. Though I was trying to take it day by day, hoping I would keep recovering and finding happiness more and more, or whatever that meant. Hoping Leo and I could have a better relationship, one that navigated his teenage years and the divorce. And hoping I didn't muck this up with Sophia. I appreciated all the support, counsel, book recommendations, and encouragement all around. It had meant the world. That was therefore fleeting, tragically. The incredible woman, Sophia. She was disturbed by my April divorce, felt that I wasn't over my ex. Why? Because I called Leo our son. I had just mentioned him in reference to co-parenting, the fact that I had to go through Clara for anything pertaining to him. Our son has a soccer game. I need to ask Clara about our son's schedule. He was my son, not biologically, but in every way that mattered. She also said she still had to recuperate from a breakup she went through 3 months ago with a guy she loved. I could see the healing she needed, but she couldn't see mine. She couldn't understand that loving Leo, referring to him as our son, wasn't about being hung up on Clara, but about the deepest love I had. And she couldn't picture involving someone new with Leo at his age. November was his 14th birthday. It was f***ing strange when others told me what I felt and got it wrong. You're not over her. You're too attached to the past. She also objected to being a stepmother. Even though Leo was almost 14, practically an adult navigating high school. I never even brought up her young 4-year-old daughter. That part of my life, my relationship with Leo, felt separate from this potential new one. Why was this troubling to me? Though in my past relationship I did nothing illegal, nothing wrong, I felt like I was marked. My divorce, my history, my deep, abiding love for my non-biological son, it was held against me. After being honest with each other, laying everything on the table, she pulled back. Just because I was divorced and had a much older son who would most certainly never be part of their day-to-day life in the way a younger child might be. It felt quite unjust. If I told people straight up about my circumstances, divorced, love my non-biological son deeply, still healing, I was accused of not being over my ex. I wasn't being real about things if I held that back and said nothing. It felt like a no-win situation. Update 5. Some had wondered how this all started, how I got up where I was today. Hence, I attempted publishing this earlier as an explanation of what went down when things initially started. Though recent, this began in July of last year, July 2020. Far, far from all this now. I was appreciative of all the guidance, encouragement and kicks in the ass from those who had gone through it and were helping. All right, so far as things stood, July 2020 started as if everything was going downward. June had turned out fantastic. Together with Leo and his friend, we had taken a brief trip down to the Great Sand Dunes National Park. We had fun together. The intimacy with Clara was amazing. Leo and his friend hung out. We had time as a couple. It felt normal, happy. July arrived, and we were having problems. Spats over dumb small things. She showed no desire in closeness. Her day would be of interest to me. I'd ask about it, listen, but she exhibited no curiosity about mine. Long bathroom stays, baths all the damn time, yet she wanted to gripe about not spending time with us. With me. July passed like this. August started to get more tense. She even tried to present me with lingerie and stated it would be for my birthday. Like if everything was normal. A forced attempt at intimacy, maybe? My birthday arrived in August. She got me several LPs, but nothing particularly noteworthy. I had a tough day at work. She did too, apparently. We ended up cooking and hanging around together. I reasoned, it's a work day, it's whatever. She seemed not truly present, distant, but delivered intimacy anyway. A box to be checked? I didn't know. We had several major arguments in September. At last, one of which she begged to have some alone time. Alone time? When our marriage felt like it was disintegrating? Though this was suspicious, I became insane with worry as I felt our marriage was falling apart, as correct as I was. Taking Jack, I headed to spend the evening with Marcus and his family. A night away, a breather. I returned home early in the afternoon the following day. I never stopped her from hanging out with her friends. She had mentioned she wanted to go out before I arrived home. I arrived home at about 12 o'clock. At 6 or 7, she arrived home. Happy to see her, I told her when I saw her, tried to bridge the gap. She said the month was awful and that week was especially so. She was unpleasant, snarky, straightforward, nasty. Not kissing me, barely looking at me. I kept urging her to tell me what was going on. I wanted us to be fine. I sensed things were off. Now, a quite good friend, an acquaintance from the business world, expressed concern after seeing me at work. He saw I was struggling. I told him I loved my wife very much. We had been married for 8 years at this point and had been together for 10 years total, yet I had no idea what to do. He advised marriage therapy and advised reading The 5 Love Languages and another book I couldn't remember right now. After reading the book right away, I knew I had been giving work too much top priority. Our company was owned by my brother and me. Since COVID hit, we had been overrun as business had been flourishing. Long hours, constant demands. I had gotten caught up in it. I never stopped trying to love her or be close, both physically and in talks, though, even then. But she had vanished, emotionally, spiritually. I got home that same day, and she was unwell. I looked after her, trying to show I cared. As she was getting dressed the next morning, I gently and affectionately requested whether we might talk before she left. Having read the book all night before, I told her everything I had discovered about myself, about my own shortcomings in the marriage. Although I said I had been lazy, I loved her. I advised us to visit marriage counselling, to try to mend things, because we had Leo, and we loved one another. She broke down crying, kept repeating, "You're going to hate me." Hence, anything I said must have set her off, must have made her feel safe enough or guilty enough to finally crack. She finally acknowledged that she had cheated on me last weekend when she was with her friends, after being urged to be straight up with me. Though I was stunned and totally blown away, the first feeling wasn't rage. It was a desperate desire to save what we had. I loved my son, my marriage, and my wife. Like a fool, I assured her everything was good. I could forgive her. But she had to come clean on everything. No more secrets. She then clammed up, refused to give names, refused information. Basically, she had been having an emotional affair until that day in September. She had been chatting to the other man since July. The timeline clicked into place. The distance, the baths, the lack of intimacy, it all made a terrible kind of sense. How could I find her credible? I did not. Not anymore. I told her she had parodied our marriage, our vows, everything we had built. It was Thursday. She rejected and offered very little justification when I tried to have a conversation with her that evening. She said she had told the other guy she had confessed to me, but she never consented to discuss things with me. Stonewalling. Friday came around the same way. The air in the apartment was thick with unspoken words and pain. I was dry heaving, hadn't slept, felt eerie, furious, damaged within. When Saturday finally arrived, Marcus advised me to go home, to go find out what was happening. He saw the damage I was causing myself by staying away, by not knowing. She got up, started working out in the apartment gym, acting like it was a normal Saturday. I stayed a mess all the while. I phoned my father, Robert. He had been the cheater in his marriage decades ago, but my mother and he sorted things out. Their marriage had been wonderful for 38 years now. I asked him for his opinion. He listened quietly. Then he said, "Son, she understood exactly what she was doing. It's not a mistake. It's a choice. She has to decide. If she doesn't, that tells you all you need to know." Though a wreck, I got myself together. I made sure Leo was looked after. He was engrossed in video games, thankfully oblivious to the silent war raging around him. I tidied the house. Then I descended to our apartment gym. I instructed her to come see me after she finished. She showed up half an hour later, smelling of sweat and disinfectant. I gently reminded her that she had to decide between our family and marriage or the other guy. It was that simple, that brutal. All I got was, "I don't know." And she requested for some time. I agreed. On the stipulation that she not see or contact him, not while she was deciding. She agreed and headed out for a 2-hour run. I could see her whereabouts on a shared app, running away, literally. She returned. At last, saw I'd cleaned the place, started to cry. "What have you decided?" I asked her. Once more, it was a profusion of, "I don't know." "It's over," she muttered at last as I pushed her. The words were barely audible. "Okay," I answered. The single word felt heavier than anything I'd ever lifted. I grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed some clothes inside, and she started crying harder, because I was truly leaving. I was crying too, quietly. My chest felt like it was being crushed. Leo was distracted with computer games, so he was good. I kissed him, told him I was going to spend a short time at his Uncle Marcus's. I bailed. I told her I'd be back in the morning for my stuff. When I arrived at about 6 a.m., the next morning the air was cold and crisp, typical Boulder autumn. I took trash bags right away and headed straight into our bedroom, bathroom and closet, to begin packing everything I owned into them. Methodical, numb. Tears flowing, she sat up in bed, staring at me. She probed me about what I was doing. I told her she made her choice. This was the consequence. She began to wail. Though it broke my heart, my wife was also wanted once more. The part of me, the fool who still loved her, who wanted the life back, wanted to believe this was real regret. Like a fool, I lay in bed with her for half an hour, embraced her, kissed her. "You have to come clean," I assured her. "It doesn't have to be this way." One last plea. Silence. She said nothing about the AP, nothing about the details. Furious, I yelled at her. "All of this is useless." I got up, packed faster. Informed her my father and brother were at a cafe 5 minutes away, waiting for my call to assist with the heavy stuff. It was 11 a.m. by now. I had bagged everything. She wanted us to tell Leo what was happening. Together. We went to wake him, gave him a farce of an explanation. Something about poor communication, about needing space. He looked bewildered. She said she would rather not see my family. She was embarrassed. I didn't blame her. She took Leo shopping, a distraction. I could tell he was a little disoriented and bewildered. My dad and Marcus answered when I called. We took my 3 TVs, all the gadgets I had acquired to make our house smart. Naturally, I left Leo all his great stuff, his gaming consoles, his computer, everything that was his. I loved him. None of this was his fault. She texted me not to go, to wait for her and Leo before I headed off. I waited. She found the place looking as though it had been looted, the empty spaces where furniture and electronics used to be. She advised me not to go. Noted that Leo, enraged, had knocked over a display at the store and expressed desire we could still be a family. I gave her a look that said nothing nice. Then I told her, naturally he does. What kind of point was that? Of course he wanted his family back. "I want to," I said, my voice raw. "But what the devil are you looking for, Clara? What do you want?" Once more, "I have no idea." I said remaining was pointless for me. I was leaving. She should notify her parents, Arthur and Evelyn. Should they discover it from Leo, they would be enraged. The first week of October arrived next week. I attempted to keep Leo on a routine. Some mornings I had to be at work early, so I showed up for him, drove him to school, and made breakfast at my new temporary place. On other mornings I took him to see his grandparents, Arthur and Evelyn, who lived just outside of Boulder. I loaded everything on Arthur and Evelyn when they inquired about what was going on, told them the truth. Clara's affair, her refusal to be honest, her choice. They were angry and depressed for me, having learned to love and respect me over the years. She was sticking to her foolishness, even though I told them we should mend things. I wasn't clear what she was even trying to mend. She was texting me about how she hated herself. Found it hard to believe she accomplished all this. She was still chatting to the other man all through this. Even inquired as to if we may get back together. You know what you have to do, I told her. Cut him off. Be honest. During the week, I picked up Leo after practice and headed home with him, back to the apartment that was no longer mine. I loved him, thus I consented when he wanted to show me something in his room. We spent an hour there, talking about games, school, soccer, normalcy. She was a wreck when I walked out to the living room. She approached me closely, wanted me to sit down with her, encircling me with arms. I almost gave in. The fool in me, desperate for the familiar comfort. But I got up, told her I wasn't doing this, not if she was still chatting to or involved with this man. She claimed she cut it off. So I sat down, hugged her, we even gently kissed. I touched her face. The phone then rang, a new ringtone. I knew she was panicking inside. From her end, he had been phoning all day. I asked her to show me, she stopped it. Stared her in the eyes, she started to cry, objected. She understands what she has to do if she wants me. I reminded her once more, the ball was in her court, but she wasn't picking it up. I'm still returning throughout the week, picking up Leo from school, even cooking meals to store in the refrigerator for him. She is not doing laundry, it piles up. I have to push myself not to do it for her. But I find Leo smells from not washing his clothes. His blankets are dirty. Her neglect of him, the basic things, calls for me to chastise her. But I don't. Not in front of him. I just do it myself when I can. Her friends wanted to take her to the Renaissance Fair that weekend, and I found it amazing how she was acting as if everything was good, as if her life wasn't a mess of her own making. She asks whether I might spend a few hours watching Leo. I want time with him, therefore I say yes. But even I know I'm not really ready for that, for being back in that space alone with him, in the place that used to be ours. I agreed otherwise as well. 4 additional lads walk out and get in my car when I show up after work to fetch him up from his friend's house, probably a sleepover. Not at him, but at her, I am enraged. She understands from my call that I would be leaving should she not return to get him. She is behaving all pithy about it, acts like I'm being unreasonable. It takes 3 hours to return. She has the arrogance to argue that spending her birthday with pals shouldn't cause her guilt. Her birthday is later that week. She took advantage. And this is never going to happen again. She should feel horrible given all that is going on. Weeping, she asks, "What, am I only supposed to be a mother?" I don't say anything about that either. But God damn it. Yes, you picked this before I even entered the scene. You chose this path. We chat a little longer. And she even invites me to stay, to sleep in the same bed, to be close. The pull is still there, a physical ache of longing. But the betrayal is a cold, hard wall. I turn it down and head off. Leo strikes me as depressed, quiet. Even though it's taxing both financially and emotionally, I keep seeing him. Since now I'm just 45 minutes away, staying with Marcus. Her parents just know what I've told them, since she is avoiding them too. This is October 25th, my ex's birthday. Things have been strange. I am shamefully performing the pick-me dance. Monday here, and I'm sending nice video greetings. Trying to be the good guy, trying to show her what she's losing, but she seems apathetic about it. I start with a little present, working my way up. Then I go in the morning to look after Leo, drive him to school, and then I do what I always do on her birthday week. I cleaned off a picture of the 3 of us at a pumpkin patch when we first got acquainted. Leo was maybe 5. It's a lovely image. Happy family. A lie. I developed this itching inside me just before leaving the apartment. A feeling, a nagging doubt. Sorry, I can't repeat this text. If you need help with anything else, feel free to ask. Informing my ex that she might retain the AP, but she had wrecked her marriage. The woman clarified that she had learned about him from the toys he had sent. The same toys in the box. She had found the evidence herself and sent it to Clara, Sarah Jenkins, his wife. I snapped pictures of everything. The toys, the note from the AP, the note from Sarah, the family photo, and I went right to Arthur and Evelyn, Clara's parents. showed them what I had discovered. Get a lawyer. Get all my ducks in a row and then file, Arthur advised me. Same counsel many of you had given me. That same day I did that. No more pick-me dance. No more waiting. No more hoping. When it arrived a few days later, I handed her the paperwork. Divorce papers. For real this time. We sat on it for months. The legal process was slow. We attended Leo's soccer matches, had a few private evenings, civil, strained, but I wouldn't dare sleep with her, even though the chance presented itself. The thought repulsed me now. The image of the shoebox, the notes, it was burned into my mind. At one soccer game, she eventually observed that I wasn't really at my best. Distant, cold. I prodded till she said she was seeing someone. Someone new. Not the AP from before, apparently. That following week, I turned in every file to my lawyer, pushed it through. We seemed caught up right now. The end was in sight. Update 6. I returned to the same vacation location I visited last summer in order to snowboard. Breckenridge, Colorado. Just me out here. This was my first true adventure alone. All wholly mine. I never made the trip to serve as a kind of diversion or anything else. It was about reclaiming something I loved. I visited the slopes 10 years ago, pre-Clara. Performed rather well back then. Strapping into the board, the cold air in my lungs, the bite of the snow. It felt like coming home to a part of myself I'd forgotten. I can't describe how emotionally satisfying it was to be without the drag of my ex-wife, who hated everything outdoors, let alone snow or cold. Snowboarding had always made me happy, a pure, uncomplicated joy. I was thumbing my ring finger, a phantom weight still there, trying to spin the long-gone ring as I strolled throughout the village. Though we had been separated almost 2 years ago now, seeing couples engage in Valentine's Day activities somewhat weighed on my heart. It was strange, a pang of something I thought I was over. I supposed I missed having the ring there, especially what the ring ought to have symbolized. Ultimately, though, with my ex, it was only a lump of metal and a false promise. I guess I was simply reflecting. But I couldn't describe how quite dreamy this had been. The freedom, the focus, the physical challenge. After hurting so terribly, the happiness, enthusiasm, laughing, and foolishness that had permeated my life on the slopes seemed amazing. Hell, I was sore and in pain beyond what I could recall from the last time I went snowboarding, muscles screaming. But this ache was one I had totally missed. It was good pain, productive pain. For those of you who were struggling, however cliché as it seemed, it did indeed get better with time. Spend some time grieving and hurting, then go forward. Improve yourself for yourself. I appreciated everyone being there and listening. Current part characters, 4,000 total characters, 12,000. Update 7. The divorce occurred 2 years ago. This was the month the divorce was finalized. April, 2 years. As the title suggested, the dreams were resurfacing. Strange seemed to be the situation. Dreaming, we found ourselves at a house I had never seen before. Not the old apartment, not the house I was starting to build. Somewhere new, unfamiliar. She begged me to accompany her upstairs. We both were nude. No awkwardness. No pain, just us. We arrived upstairs to what looks to be our room. A bedroom, but not ours, and she looks me up and down, giving me that smile I remembered and liked, the one that used to melt me. Then says hi. I had nowhere to start. No words. My mind blank. She walks up, puts her hands in mine, and all I can say back is hi. She presses her body into mine, warm, familiar. I encircle her in my arms. Her beautiful skin, her warmth, it really spoke to me. A language I thought I'd forgotten. She smelled her shampoo, even now. Actually, I was pleased my dog Jack woke me up seconds later, panting, nudging my hand, begging for a walk. This was my second dream for this month. Not since last November had I dreamt of her like this. Hadn't seen my ex in months. Emotion, such things was strange. Not devastating, not heartbreaking in the same way it used to be. More of a what the heck kind of emotion. Bewildering. One reason all of this was happening could be my recent house building on my own. Pouring concrete, framing walls, creating something from nothing. Maybe it was stirring up feelings about the past, about building a life. The dreams felt like echoes from a distant country. I guess I was just sort of airing out my mind. Today felt odd, displaced. My warmest wishes go out to those of you hurting. Remain strong. Keep cheerful. Update 8. I met with Leo yesterday in great anticipation. Since his last birthday, November, I had not heard anything significant from him, just sporadic texts. It had been killing me. Again, though, I understood how teenagers behave, and I was sure he had a lot on his plate. Middle school ending, high school looming. Big changes. His mother's obnoxious boyfriend was also a factor, I was sure. Another man in the picture, another potential father figure, whether I liked it or not. To be honest, when he at last picked up the phone, I got rather happy. His voice had dropped even more since I last heard it properly. Our chat was nice. A little awkward at first, as it often was now. It took a moment of me telling him what I'd been up to, building a house, our corgi getting older, funny Jack stories, and as always, our shared love of video games, to pull him out of his shell. He lit up talking about Rocket League, high ranking. He had been invited to a competition including pros, scheduled for Twitch broadcast. My boy. Doing amazing things. I really was thrilled for him. We should keep chatting, I said. Tell me more about this. He promises to email me the link. From his now totally different voice, deep and cracking, I take it as a little triumph that he still thinks of me as Dad. He didn't call me that explicitly, but the way he talked, the way he responded, it felt like the same connection was there. Underneath the teenage reserve. I was flattered and happy. Proud. My heart started feeling it once more a few hours after our afterglow conversation. Not the sharp, tearing pain of the early days. It was more of a dull ache, just aching deep down within me. A heavy, persistent throb. It hurt and bothered me enough to cause me to hardly sleep last night. Seeing my attitude this morning, quiet, withdrawn, my father, Robert, asked what was bothering me. We were at the business yard, unloading a shipment of trees. The smell of pine was strong. I first found it difficult to actually put it into words. How could I explain that talking to my son, the boy I loved more than life itself, brought back the pain of the woman who betrayed me? It felt insane. But the second time he asked, gently, persistently, it came naturally. It's Leo, I said. Talking to him, seeing how great he's doing, it brings it all back. The weight, the suffering, it still existed. Even if I was completely happy when I had Leo, when I could still be a part of his life in any manner he chose, it was enough to keep my head spinning over why. Why did it have to be this way? Why did her actions have to taint the purest love I knew? At this point, I realized the cause had no bearing on anything. It wouldn't provide comfort. Everything was done and accomplished. Divorce finalized, life moved on. However, even 2 years down the road, it was still fresh and painful. My pride in being Leo's dad, my emotions of love and admiration for him, were so intertwined with the love I had for Clara, the life we built, the family we were, which now simply acted as a painful reminder every time I saw him, every time I talked to him. The good was inseparable from the bad. Though I can't say I know what you're feeling, son, coming from this side of your situation, you may need to ask yourself if the pain and suffering are worth it, for your mental health and general well-being. My father, a cheater in his own time, but someone who made amends and kept on doing so, told me. Though you love him with all your being, and the time you spend brings enormous delight, Robert said, leaning against a stack of pavers, his face etched with his own history. It follows days of rehabilitation for you, every time, a high followed by a crash. I am not advising you to give up on him. Never. If it were me trying to be there for you, I would never stop. Perhaps you should nonetheless let go of everything else. All the pain, all the resentment, all the why. You gave all you have, he continued. You tried. You're doing so well now, Ethan. I haven't seen you this joyful in a long time. Building the business, building your house, getting back out there. He gestured towards the mountains in the distance, sharp and clear against the blue sky. But still, I can see the toll it takes on you, your emotions divided, between your love for your son and the anguish you obviously still have from how you were deceived. I understood. He was acting as a father. Sure. Here's the text exactly as you requested. Seeing obvious suffering on my face while his son battled, he would never want it lastingly. Given the lengths of his military training, which trained him to detach himself and view events from several angles, I took it as his attempt to provide wise guidance, a strategic withdrawal from the pain. He did not intend to just vanish from Leo's life, I was sure. He knew how much Leo meant to me. How could he not? Maybe he only wanted me to keep outside of it all. Outside the drama. Outside the pain. Perhaps he only wanted to spare me the suffering, still afflicting my heart. Just letting my ideas float about. My best wishes extend to everyone suffering right now, particularly to those in healing. Remain strong and keep cheerful. I agreed absolutely with the comments I received after that post. My first response and attitude to Leo calling were exactly perfect. For a teen especially, this was all quite challenging ground to walk. Talk not of his mother, her partner, or their domestic situation. Create an oasis out of myself and my relationship with Leo. Be in his life a non-judging lighthouse. Should the matter come up, avoid pledging yourself to a position. Still keep your distance and objectivity. Find out his short-term bucket list. Perhaps we two might handle a few of those jointly. I made sure to keep any reference to his home situation or anything about Clara away from our conversations. I concentrated on talking about just him and me, his interests, his friends, his gaming, school, soccer, avoided passing opinions on Clara or her choices. Though it felt like negotiating in the dark sometimes, trying to find my way through his teenage world, I was trying to assist him with a list of things he wanted to do. That's the intensity of my affection. My love for him wasn't conditional. It wasn't about biology. It was about being there. I wouldn't give up on him. Thank you for the guidance. I would keep making sure that what we published, what we created together, our time, was a refuge for him. Months passed. The Boulder sun beat down. The landscaping business boomed. Marcus and I hired more hands. I threw myself into the work. The physical labor was good. Digging, planting, building patios and walls. Tangible results. Order created from chaos. It was a good metaphor, I knew. Building something new from the ground up. My new house was slowly taking shape. The framing was up, exposed wood against the sky. It was on a small plot of land just outside of the city limits, overlooking the foothills, a place that was entirely mine. Every nail, every board felt like a step forward, a deliberate act of creation in the face of destruction. It was slow, hard work, but it felt right. I still had the dreams sometimes, less frequent now, more like faint echoes than vivid replays. But they reminded me that the past wasn't fully buried. The ache was still there too. A dull throb under the surface, usually quiet, but ready to flare up when triggered. Seeing Clara at Leo's school events was always a trigger. Awkward nods, strained smiles, minimal conversation. Her obnoxious boyfriend was sometimes there. A man who was now spending time with my son. Sharing meals, maybe watching movies, being present in a way I couldn't be consistently anymore. It was a fresh wound every time. A reminder of what I'd lost and what Leo was navigating. Leo was fully in high school now, more independent than ever. Communication was still sporadic, texts mostly, quick calls. Getting him to commit to spending time together was a negotiation. He was busy. Friends, school, sports, gaming. His world was expanding and I was a part of it, but not the central figure I once was. It hurt, a different kind of hurt than the betrayal, but painful nonetheless. The fear of drifting apart, of him eventually seeing me as less than Dad. I kept showing up, went to his soccer games when I could, sat separately from Clara, cheered the loudest for him, sent him texts after games. Great hustle, buddy. Nice pass. Tried to keep the connection alive, even if it was just a thin thread sometimes. Robert, my father, visited often. He'd come out to the house I was building, watch me work, offer advice, both on construction and on life. He saw the struggle still in my eyes. "That ache," he said one afternoon, sitting on a pile of lumber, the smell of sawdust in the air. "It doesn't ever fully go away, Ethan. Not for some things. You just learn to live with it." "Live with it?" I asked, wiping sweat from my brow. "Just carry it around forever?" "Maybe," he said, his gaze distant. "Or maybe you find a way to put it down sometimes. That connection with Leo, it's beautiful. It's the best thing that came out of all this for you. But if it's the main thing that brings the pain back, you have to figure out how to handle that." It was the same thought he'd expressed before, the one that felt impossible. How could the source of my greatest joy also be the trigger for my deepest pain? And how could I possibly ever handle that by putting distance between myself and Leo? It felt like a betrayal of my own. "He's my son, Dad," I said, my voice tight. "He's my son." "I know," Robert said softly. I see it, he sees it too, but the situation, it's tied up with her, always will be, and that tie, it's poisoning you. He wasn't telling me to abandon Leo. I knew that. He was expressing the pain of watching his son suffer. He was suggesting that perhaps the constant exposure, the constant reminder of the past through the co-parenting dynamic, was preventing me from fully healing. That maybe, just maybe, I needed to find a way to love Leo and be there for him, without letting Clara and the past take such a heavy toll. It was a difficult truth, one I wasn't ready to fully accept. I went on a few more dates after Sophia. They were fine, pleasant, but the connection wasn't there. I felt guarded, hesitant, afraid of getting hurt again, afraid of bringing my baggage into someone else's life, afraid of the conversation about Leo, about my past. It was easier to be alone, with Jack and the house. Building the house became my focus, my therapy. The physical exhaustion was a welcome distraction from the emotional exhaustion. Seeing the walls go up, the roof take shape. It was progress I could see, touch, feel, unlike the messy, invisible progress of healing my heart. Leo came to visit the site sometimes. He'd wander around, kicking at loose stones, looking up at the frame. "This is going to be cool, Dad," he'd say. Dad. The word still felt like a gift. He'd bring his gaming system sometimes, set it up on a makeshift table in the unfinished living room, and we'd play for a while. These moments were precious, untainted, just us. But then he'd leave, go back to Clara's, back to that other life, and the ache would return. The reminder that this new house, this new life, was one he wouldn't be a part of in the same way. He wouldn't wake up here every morning, wouldn't come home from school here. It was my house, not ours. 2 years. 2 years since the divorce was final. 2.5 years since the confession. It felt like a lifetime. And also sometimes like yesterday. I was sitting on the porch swing of the new house. It wasn't finished yet, but the porch was done. I could sit here in the evenings, watch the sunset paint the Flatirons in shades of orange and pink. Jack was curled up at my feet. The air was cool. I was doing well. Objectively. The business was thriving. I had a solid support system in Marcus and Robert. The house was nearing completion. I was healthier, both physically and mentally, than I had been in years. The raw devastation was gone. The crippling grief had faded, but the ache remained, a quiet, persistent companion. Sometimes it was a hum under the surface. Sometimes, like after a conversation with Leo or a dream or an unexpected glimpse of Clara's car in town, it flared into a sharp, heavy throb. I had accepted it. Accepted that this was likely a scar I would carry. Not a gaping wound anymore, but a scar. A reminder of the life I lost, the betrayal I endured, and the complex, beautiful, painful bond I had with a son who wasn't mine by blood, but was mine by heart. I wasn't actively dating, hadn't been since Sophia. The thought still felt heavy, like too much effort. Maybe someday. Maybe when the house was finished. Maybe when the ache felt less like a constant presence and more like a distant memory. Leo was navigating high school, driving lessons, the complexities of being a teenager. Our relationship was still a mix of sporadic texts, planned outings, and stolen moments. It wasn't the easy, constant presence of fatherhood I'd known, but it was ours, and I cherished every second. I would be there, always. A non-judging lighthouse, just like the comments had suggested. I looked out at the mountains, solid, unchanging. They had been here long before my pain, and they would be here long after. They were a reminder of resilience, of enduring. Building this house had taught me that you could create something beautiful and strong, even on ground that had been shaken. It wasn't the house I had planned to build. Not the one with Clara. Not the one where we would have raised Leo and maybe a younger sibling. But it was my house, and it was a good house. The ache was still there, but so was the pride. So was the love for Leo. So was the quiet satisfaction of building, one board at a time, one day at a time. Healing wasn't a destination. It was the journey itself. And I was still walking. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of ponderosa pine and distant wood smoke. It was late fall in Boulder, the kind of weather that made you want to burrow down or hike high. I chose the latter. A familiar trail in the foothills, one I'd started going on regularly after the divorce. It was steep in parts, required focus, good for clearing the head. 2.5 years. The initial shock had faded into a dull, persistent ache. The rage had softened into a bitter resignation. The longing, that was the trickiest one. It would ambush me sometimes, usually in the quiet moments, like the dream of the unfamiliar house, or the phantom weight of a ring on my finger. I hadn't seen Clara much lately. Our interactions were limited to quick handoffs of Leo or brief, strained conversations about his schedule. The apathy I'd felt was still mostly there. She was just a person, the mother of Leo, the woman who had shattered my life, but the intense emotional charge was gone, mostly, except when it wasn't, like last week. I was at the grocery store, picking up supplies for the house build. I turned down an aisle, and there she was, with the obnoxious boyfriend. They were laughing, casual, normal. It hit me like a physical blow. Not the pain of longing, but the sharp, ugly sting of injustice. She got to move on so easily. She got to laugh and build a new life, while I was still wrestling with the wreckage of the old one. I ducked into another aisle, heart-hammering, stupid, completely stupid. It shouldn't affect me anymore. But it did. The unfairness of it all. My father's words echoed in my head. Is the pain worth it? He wasn't saying Leo caused the pain. He was saying the situation caused it. The constant reminder, the shared history, the co-parenting dance that kept me tied to the source of the trauma. I reached a rocky outcrop that overlooked the city, spread out below. The house, a small square of wood and tar paper from this distance, sat nestled in the landscape, my project. Leo was doing well. He was getting better at managing his time, balancing school and soccer and gaming. He even called me the other day just to talk, not because he needed anything. We talked for 20 minutes about a new game release. It was easy, natural. Those calls were gold. They were the moments that made the struggle worth it. But then the call ended, and the silence in my apartment felt heavier. The contrast between the warmth of the conversation and the cold reality of my solitary life was stark. I knew I wasn't ready to date again. Not really. Sophia had been right. I was still carrying too much history, too much pain. It wasn't fair to anyone new. I needed to finish building this house, finish building myself. The house was progressing well. The roof was on. The windows were in. It was starting to feel like a real home, not just a construction site. I spent most weekends out there, working until my muscles ached and my mind was blessedly blank. Marcus helped when he could. He was a rock, always there, always pragmatic. "You going to have a housewarming party when this is done?" he asked one Saturday, wiping sweat from his brow. "Maybe," I said. "Just a few people. Keep it simple." The thought of a big gathering felt overwhelming. Another reminder of the life that was supposed to fill this space. "It's a good house, Ethan," he said, looking around. "Solid." "Trying to make it that way," I replied, hammering a nail into a stud. Solid, unlike my foundation, which had crumbled. I thought about Sarah Jenkins sometimes, the AP's wife, the woman who had sent the evidence. I never reached out to her. Didn't know if she was still in the area, if her own life had recovered. We were two strangers connected by a shared wound, but our paths diverged after that one impactful moment. Maybe she was healing too. Maybe she had found her own way to build something new. Leo's birthday was coming up, 14, a teenager. It felt like just yesterday I was teaching him how to ride his bike in the park down the street from the old apartment. Time was a thief. It stole the easy years, the years when I was his whole world. Now his world was so much bigger. I planned a small celebration for him. Just me and him. Maybe dinner at his favorite pizza place. Keep it low-key. No need for awkwardness. The ache flared up as I thought about it. The pride in the young man he was becoming, tangled with the sadness of the family we weren't anymore. The constant reminder that this was a relationship built on love, yes, but also on loss. I took a deep breath, the cold air burning my lungs. The view was stunning. The city lights were starting to twinkle below. It was a beautiful place to be, a beautiful life in many ways. Despite everything. I started the hike back down, the trail growing darker. Jack trotted ahead, his tail wagging. He didn't care about betrayal or divorce or non-biological fatherhood. He just cared about squirrels and walks and belly rubs. His simplicity was a comfort. I was still fighting the past, fighting the pain, fighting the fear of the future, but I was also building a house, building a new life, building a stronger version of myself. It wasn't easy. It was messy and frustrating and sometimes overwhelming, but I was still here, still standing, still trying. And that, I supposed, was enough, for now. Winter settled over Boulder. The Flatterens were dusted with snow, and the air was sharp and cold. The house build slowed down considerably, the weather making exterior work difficult. It gave me more time for the interior, drywall, painting, flooring, things that felt like finishing touches, even though there was still so much to do. Leo's birthday dinner was a success, just us. We talked about school, his friends, the gaming competition he was practicing for. He seemed happy. More open than he had been in a while. He even asked about the house. "Can I come see it soon?" he asked. "Any time, buddy," I said, my heart swelling. "It's your house too, whenever you want to be there." He smiled, a genuine teenage smile that reached his eyes. It was worth everything. After dinner, I dropped him back at Clara's apartment. She was waiting outside. A quick exchange about pick-up times for soccer practice next week. Clinical. Distant. The obnoxious boyfriend was visible through the window, watching TV. Another pang. Another reminder. But the ache didn't last as long that night. The warmth from the dinner with Leo, the connection we'd shared, lingered. Maybe Robert was right. Maybe it was about finding a way to focus on the good, on the love, and let the pain associated with Clara fade into the background. It was easier said than done, of course, but maybe it was possible. I spent Christmas alone, mostly. Marcus and his family invited me over, but I opted for a quiet day at the new house, working on sanding floors, listening to music. Jack kept me company. It felt peaceful. Not lonely exactly, just quiet. A different kind of quiet than the empty apartment had been. This quiet felt full of potential. New Year's Eve, I went over to Marcus's. We watched the fireworks over the city from his backyard, talked about the business, about life. He didn't push, just listened. Being around his stable family life was sometimes hard, a reminder of what I'd lost. But mostly it was comforting. A reminder that healthy relationships existed. Spring came slowly to Colorado. The snow melted in the foothills and the trails opened up again. The landscaping business picked up, the phones ringing constantly. I was back in the dirt, hands in the soil, creating beauty and order in other people's yards. It was grounding. The house was getting close. Kitchen cabinets were in, bathrooms were tiled. It was starting to look like the vision I'd